Shocking cheating wife story. A nurse's affair sparked a friend's betrayal. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe to Viora for more unforgettable stories that speak to the heart. I caught my wife's silhouette in a hotel photo, laughing in another man's arms, her wedding ring glinting like a lie. The worst part? Our closest friends knew and helped her hide it, turning our life into a scripted betrayal. My name is James Sullivan, a 47-year-old real estate developer in Denver with a comfortable life carved from hard work. Picture a sleek suburban home with mountain views, a Tesla in the driveway, and a wine cellar stocked for weekend parties. That's me. But my true anchor was my wife, Laura Sullivan. For 15 years, she was my confidant, my partner, the nurse whose smile could erase a bad day. We'd binge TikTok reels, laugh over bad sci-fi movies, and plan trips to places like Napa or the Bahamas. No kids, just us, building a life of shared dreams. Or so I thought. This cheating wife story begins with a crack in that perfect world, one I was too in love to notice. It started small, like a flicker in a familiar rhythm. Laura began clutching her phone, her fingers quick to lock the screen when I walked by. Our late-night talks faded, her answers clipped, her eyes distant. Just tired, she'd say, brushing off my concern. She was a nurse, so I believed her. Long shifts, stressful days. But the warmth was gone, replaced by a chill I couldn't shake. We used to scroll TikTok together, giggling at dog videos. Now, she'd retreat to her home office, the door softly clicking shut. This was the start of an infidelity storytime I never wanted to live. The signs grew sharper. Laura started dressing up for girls' nights. Her outfits bolder. Tight dresses, new heels, a perfume I didn't recognize. "You look amazing," I'd say, hoping for her old smile. She'd nod, distracted, already halfway out the door. Her excuses piled up. Late shifts at the hospital, coffee with a friend named Megan I'd never met, a work conference in Las Vegas she mentioned offhand. Like I should have known. "Didn't we talk about this?" she'd say when I questioned her, her tone sharp. We hadn't. I'd read enough Reddit cheating stories to know these were red flags, but I didn't want to believe it. Not Laura, not us. One night I tested her. She said she was meeting Megan for drinks, but her phone's location showed a hotel downtown. My heart sank, but I didn't call. I drove to the hotel, parked across the street, and watched. Laura stepped out, stunning in a red dress, but she wasn't alone. A man, tall, graying, familiar, held her hand, his laugh echoing as they disappeared inside. I didn't follow. I sat there, the Denver skyline blurring through my tears, the truth clawing at me. This wasn't just a true cheating story. It was my life unraveling. I didn't confront her. I'm James Sullivan. I fix problems, not make them. Instead, I dug. I checked our bank statements, finding charges for hotels and restaurants I'd never been to. I noticed her phone buzzing at odd hours, her work texts coming from an unsaved number. I even tracked her Vegas trip plans, emails to friends about a fun getaway. No mention of work. The lies were flimsy, but the betrayal was heavy. This was a cheating wife caught moment, but I needed proof, not just pain. The first twist came from a stranger. A woman named Emily texted me, polite but direct. "Mr. Sullivan, we need to talk about Laura. Can we meet?" I agreed, my stomach in knots. We met at a quiet coffee shop, the Rockies looming outside. Emily was in her late 20s, poised, her eyes carrying a weight I recognized. "I'm sorry to do this," she said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were photos. Laura with a man, their faces close, laughing in a hotel hot tub, her arms around him. My breath caught. "That's my dad, Richard," Emily said. "He's been seeing your wife for months." I stared at the photos, Laura's smile a knife. This was a wife affair exposed, and it wasn't just her. Emily said Laura's friends, our friends, knew and covered for her. Emily's story was a gut punch. The Vegas trip was a lie, a cover for Laura and Richard to slip away, orchestrated by her friends. Claire, Jess, and Mike, people I'd barbecued with, trusted. "They planned it," Emily said, her voice steady but sad. Dad bragged about it. I couldn't stay silent. I thanked her, my voice hollow, and left with the folder. Back home, I locked it in my safe. Laura's laughter from the living room a cruel contrast. This wasn't an emotional cheating story. It was a conspiracy, and I was the fool. I didn't explode. I planned. I opened a separate bank account, moved half our savings, and secured our investments. Our home, my firm, my retirement. I met with a lawyer, Diane, who reviewed Emily's photos. Adultery's clear, she said. We can protect your assets, deny alimony. You want to file? I hesitated. Divorce meant ending 15 years. Admitting Laura wasn't the woman I loved. Not yet, I said. I need more. Diane nodded. Get everything, texts, receipts, witnesses. Build a fortress. I did. I mirrored Laura's phone to a secure server, catching texts to Richard. Can't wait for Vegas. James suspects nothing. My heart broke, but my resolve hardened. This was a husband revenge story in the making, and I was ready. Laura's lies grew bolder. She'd come home late, her lipstick smudged, blaming a rough shift. She'd planned girls' nights with Claire and Jess, but their social media showed no trace of her. Mike, our mutual friend, started avoiding me, his excuses flimsy. I followed Laura one night, staying out of sight. She met Richard at a rooftop bar, their hands entwined, her laugh bright, the laugh she used to save for me. I snapped a photo, my hands shaking, the city lights blurring. This was a caught cheating on camera moment, and it changed everything. I met Emily again, thanking her for the truth. I'm sorry, she said, her eyes soft. Dad's done this before. I couldn't let him ruin you. Her honesty was a lifeline, a reminder I wasn't alone. I hired a private investigator, Tom, to dig deeper. Track Laura, Richard, and her friends, I said. I want names, dates, places. Tom nodded. 2 weeks. While he worked, I played the part, kissing Laura goodnight, laughing at her stories, hiding the storm inside. She didn't suspect a thing, her Vegas plans consuming her. This was a cheating wife Reddit post, and I was building a case to end it. The final twist of this part came when Laura left her phone unlocked on the counter. A text from Claire popped up. Vegas is set. James is clueless. Have fun with Richard. I saved it, my pulse racing. The betrayal wasn't just Laura's. It was our entire circle, people I'd called family. I thought of our TikTok nights, our dreams, our vows. They were lies, and I was done living them. This wasn't a cheating story voice-over anymore. It was my fight, and I was ready to win. The Denver skyline glittered outside my office window, a cold contrast to the fire in my chest as I stared at Claire's text on Laura's phone. Vegas is set. James is clueless. The betrayal wasn't just Laura's affair with Richard. It was a conspiracy woven by our friends, a web of lies that turned 15 years of marriage into a cruel joke. This cheating wife story was no longer just about heartbreak. It was about reclaiming my life. Laura came home that night, her nurse scrubs wrinkled, her smile forced. Rough shift, she said, brushing past me to the kitchen. I nodded, my face a mask, but inside, I was replaying the rooftop bar photo. Her hand in Richard's, her laugh a blade. She didn't suspect I knew, didn't see the fortress I was building. I'd mirrored her phone, saved every text, every lie. Her Vegas trip was days away, and I was ready to unravel her world. This wasn't just a true cheating story. It was a war, and I was arming myself. Tom, my private investigator, delivered his first report a week later, a thick folder that felt like a bomb. Photos of Laura and Richard at hotels, restaurants, even a secluded cabin in the Rockies. Receipts for dinners, spa days, a $2,000 dress charged to our joint account. Texts between Laura and Claire, joking about my boring routines, planning alibis. Jess and Mike were in on it too, their emails coordinating the Vegas cover story. Make sure James doesn't call. We'll say it's a girl's trip. My stomach churned, but my resolve hardened. This wasn't an emotional cheating story. It was a calculated betrayal, and our friends were accomplices. I met Diane, my lawyer, at her sleek downtown office. This is airtight, she said. flipping through Tom's folder. Adultery, financial misconduct, conspiracy. We can deny alimony, split assets evenly, force a sale of the house. You want a file now? I thought of Laura's smile, our TikTok nights, the life I'd loved. Not yet, I said. I want her to think she's won. Diane nodded, her eyes sharp. Smart. Keep gathering. We'll bury her. I left, the folder heavy in my briefcase, my heart heavier. This was a husband revenge story, but revenge tasted like ash. Laura's lies grew reckless. She'd leave for work in heels, her perfume lingering like a taunt. She'd talk about Megan, the phantom friend, with details that shifted each time. I tested her, asking, "How's Megan doing?" Her pause was too long, her laugh too high. "Oh, she's great. We're planning Vegas." I smiled, but inside, I was raging. I'd hacked her email, easy for a guy who'd built a real estate firm from scratch, and found her Vegas itinerary. A suite at the Bellagio, booked under Richard's name. This was a wife affair exposed, and I was steps ahead. Emily called, her voice soft but firm. "Dad's leaving for Vegas tomorrow. Laura's meeting him. I've got more photos if you need them." I thanked her, my throat tight. Emily's honesty, her courage, was a lifeline. She sent a new batch, Laura and Richard at a Denver jazz club, her head on his shoulder, their hands entwined. I saved them, each one a nail in the coffin of our marriage. "I'm sorry, James," Emily said. "You didn't deserve this." I didn't reply. I didn't trust my voice. This was a cheating wife-caught moment, and Emily was my unexpected ally. I struck quietly. I moved our investments to a trust, untouchable by Laura. I leased a storage unit, transferring deeds, contracts, and my grandfather's watch collection. Assets she couldn't touch. I installed a security camera in our home office, catching her late-night calls with Richard, her voice low and intimate. "Vegas will be perfect. James is oblivious." Oblivious. The word stung, but it fueled me. I sent the footage to Diane, who added it to our case. "She's digging her own grave," Diane said. I nodded, but the victory felt hollow. This was a revenge-cheating wife story, but I wasn't celebrating. Laura's friends were next. I invited Claire and Mike to dinner, testing their loyalty. The tension was palpable. Claire's laugh too loud, Mike's eyes darting to Laura. I dropped a hint. "Heard Vegas is fun this time of year. You guys going?" Claire choked on her wine. Mike stammered, No, just Laura's thing." Laura's face paled, her fork frozen. I smiled, sipping my beer. "Sounds like a blast." They left early, and Laura avoided me, her phone buzzing with texts she didn't answer. This was a caught-her-cheating reaction, and they knew I was closing in. Tom's next report was brutal. He tracked Jess, who'd rented a car for Laura and Richard's cabin getaway, and Mike, who'd lied to me about a work trip to cover Laura's absence. Worst of all, Richard wasn't just a fling. He was a serial cheater, using Laura's money to fund his lifestyle. Hotel bills, a new Rolex, even a leased BMW, all on our card. I forwarded the evidence to Diane, my hands steady but my heart breaking. This wasn't just a cheating story's tale. It was a theft of my trust, my life, my love. I confronted Laura indirectly, leaving a hotel receipt on the counter. "Found this in your purse," I said, my voice casual. Her eyes widened, her voice shaking. "Must be a mistake. Work trip." I nodded, letting her squirm. "Sure. Vegas should clear things up." She froze, her lie exposed, but she didn't confess. She doubled down, planning her trip with a smile, thinking I was still in the dark. I let her, but I was done playing the fool. This was a wife betrayal confession waiting to happen, and I was setting the stage. Emily met me again, her face drawn. "Dad's using her," she said, handing over a USB drive. "These are his texts to another woman. He's playing Laura, too." I took the drive, my jaw tight. Laura wasn't just cheating. She was a pawn in Richard's game, and our friends were enabling it. I thanked Emily, our shared pain a strange bond. "You're stronger than you know," she said. I didn't feel strong, but I kept moving. This was a toxic relationship story, and I was cutting the poison out. The Vegas trip loomed. Laura packed, her excitement palpable, her lies flimsier. "Megan's so excited," she said, avoiding my eyes. I nodded, my phone burning with Tom's latest photos. Laura and Richard at a Denver hotel, checking in for a pre-Vegas night. I sent them to Diane, who filed a motion to freeze our joint accounts. "She won't know until she tries to spend," Diane said. I pictured Laura's face at the Bellagio, her card declined, Richard's smirk fading. This was a cheating wife story, and I was rewriting the ending. The night before she left, Laura tried to play the loving wife. She cooked my favorite meal, her hand on mine, her eyes soft. "I love you, James," she said, her voice trembling. I looked at her, the woman I'd loved for 15 years, and saw a stranger. "Have fun in Vegas," I said, my tone cold. She flinched but didn't push. She left the next morning, her suitcase wheels echoing in the empty house. I sat in my office, Tom's folder open, Emily's. The Denver dawn broke cold and gray, the silence of our suburban home, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. Laura's suitcase was gone, her Vegas trip underway, but the weight of her betrayal, her affair with Richard, our friend's complicity, pressed heavier than ever. I sat in my office, Tom's photos and Emily's USB drive spread before me, each piece of evidence a brick in the fortress I'd built. This cheating wife story wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. It was about justice, and I was ready to deliver it. Laura's absence was a strange relief, but the house felt like a museum of our past. Her coffee mug on the counter, her scarf draped over a chair, relics of a love I'd believed in. I didn't touch them. I focused on the plan, checking the mirrored phone data. Texts from Laura to Richard, gushing about our Vegas escape, oblivious to the trap I'd set. Diane, my lawyer, called with an update. "The account freeze is active," she said. "Laura's cards will decline. We've filed for divorce, citing adultery and financial misconduct. The evidence is bulletproof." I nodded, staring at the Rockies through my window. "Good. Let's move fast." Diane paused. "You sure, James? This'll ruin her." I thought of Laura's laugh in those hotel photos, Claire's text calling me clueless, Mike's averted eyes. "She ruined us," I said. "Finish it." Laura's Vegas trip imploded by day 2. Tom, my PI, sent real-time updates. Laura at the Bellagio, her card declined at check-in, Richard's face darkening as he covered the bill. She texted Claire, panicked, "Why's my card not working?" James did something. Claire's reply was curt, "Calm down. We'll figure it out." I smiled, bitter. Figure it out? They were out of moves. Tom's photos kept coming. Laura and Richard arguing in a casino lobby, her face flushed, his hands raised. This was a cheating wife caught moment, and the fallout was just beginning. The internet caught wind of the drama. A Reddit thread in a Denver locals group hinted at a nurse's Vegas scandal. Not naming Laura, but close enough. Sounds like a classic cheating wife story. One user wrote, the post exploding with comments. "Hope the husband takes her for everything." I didn't engage, but the buzz grew, spilling onto Twitter with hashtag cheating wife trending locally. Laura's friends, Claire and Jess, went silent online, their usual selfies replaced by radio silence. Mike called, his voice nervous. "James, you okay?" "Heard Laura's in Vegas." I kept my tone neutral. "Yeah, with Megan, right?" He stammered, then hung up. This was a wife affair exposed, and they knew the walls were closing in. I struck next with precision. Diane subpoenaed Laura's friends, pulling Claire, Jess, and Mike into the divorce case as witnesses to the affair. Tom's evidence, texts, emails, rental car receipts, implicated them in the cover-up, their lies now a legal liability. I tipped off Richard's employer, a medical supply firm, about his extracurriculars, attaching a photo of him with Laura. By week's end, he was suspended, his BMW repossessed. Emily texted, "Dad's freaking out. He blames Laura." I didn't reply. Let them turn on each other. This was a revenge cheating wife story, and I was pulling the strings. Laura returned from Vegas early, her face drawn, her suitcase scuffed. "We need to talk," she said, standing in the living room, her voice trembling. I leaned against the counter, the camera in the office recording silently. "About what?" I asked, my tone cold. "Vegas? Megan? Or Richard?" Her eyes widened, her breath catching. "It's not what you think," she started. But I cut her off, sliding a photo across the counter. Her and Richard in the hot tub, her smile bright. "Don't lie," I said. "I've got everything, texts, receipts, footage. You and your friends played me for a fool." She sank onto the couch, sobbing. Her nurse scrubs a cruel irony. "I was lonely, James," she whispered. "You were always working." Lonely. The excuse stung, but it didn't erase her betrayal, Claire's texts, Mike's lies. This wasn't a wife-cheating confession. It was a performance, and I wasn't her audience. I didn't yell. I handed her the divorce papers, Diane's signature bold. "Sign them," I said. "We're done." She cried harder, begging for one chance. But I walked away, the memory of her Vegas texts. "James suspects nothing," burning in my mind. She stayed in the guest room, her sobs echoing through the house. But I didn't comfort her. I slept in my office, Tom's folder my only company. This was a toxic relationship story, and I was cutting the poison out. The fallout was swift. Diane pushed the divorce forward, the evidence overwhelming. Laura's lawyer tried to spin her as emotionally neglected, but the judge wasn't swayed. The photos, texts, and financial records painted a clear picture. Adultery, deception, conspiracy. Laura lost her claim to alimony, our assets were split evenly, and the house was ordered sold. She'd get half the proceeds, but nothing more, no retirement fund, no Tesla, no wine cellar. Claire, Jess, and Mike were deposed, their lies crumbling under oath. Claire admitted to planning the Vegas cover. Jess confessed to renting the car. Mike cracked, revealing he'd known for months. Their reputations tanked, their social circle shunning them. This was a cheating wife Reddit post come to life, and Laura's allies were collateral damage. Richard was the final domino. Emily sent proof of his other affairs. Texts to a third woman, hotel bookings overlapping with Laura's. I forwarded it to Diane, who leaked it to Richard's wife. His marriage imploded, his suspension became a firing, and he left Denver, tail between his legs. Laura called him, her voice shrill through the mirrored phone. "You said you'd leave her." His reply was cold. "You were fun, Laura. That's all." I almost pitied her. Almost. This was a caught cheating on camera moment, and she'd played herself. Laura's last stand was pathetic. She posted a tearful TikTok, claiming she'd made a mistake and just needed love. The comments were brutal. Cheating wife story vibes. Your friends threw you under the bus. Her followers plummeted. Her hospital colleagues distanced her. Her life unraveling thread by thread. She moved out, renting a small apartment, her designer dresses packed in boxes. I didn't watch her go. I was already moving on, the house listed, my new apartment leased. A quiet loft downtown, a fresh start. I rebuilt slowly. I started painting again, landscapes of the Rockies that calmed my soul. I joined a bowling league, the clatter of pins a distraction from the pain. Therapy helped. A kind woman named Lisa who listened as I unpacked 15 years of love and loss. "You're not broken, James," she said. "You're healing." I wasn't sure I believed her, but I kept going, one day at a time. This wasn't a cheating story's tale anymore. It was a story of survival, and I was writing it. Emily became an unexpected friend. We met for coffee, sharing stories of betrayal, her dad's affairs, my wife's lies. "We're stronger for it," she said, her smile genuine. We didn't rush into anything, just talked, laughed, healed. She loved my paintings. I admired her courage. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something real. A connection born from shared scars. I looked at her one evening, the Denver lights twinkling outside, and felt a flicker of hope. The house sold, the divorce finalized, Laura a ghost in my past. I stood in my loft, a canvas half-painted. Emily's text lighting up my phone. "Bowling tonight?" I smiled, something I hadn't done in months. Was I right to destroy Laura's world? To tear down her lies with surgical precision? Or did I lose something in the fire, compassion, forgiveness, the man I used to be? Healing takes time, Lisa had said, and I was trying. But the scars remained, a map of a life I'd never planned. If this story broke your heart, hit that like button, share your thoughts below, and subscribe to Viora for more raw, real dramas. Did I go too far? Or did Laura's betrayal deserve her ruin? Tell me in the comments, and let's keep the conversation alive.